How did this guy turn $500 and his weekends into a $4.4 million a year gutter business?
After working for my boss for about 5 years, I had $35 in my checking account. So I started a side hustle and I'd make about $1,200 to $1,600 cash in one day.
This one breakthrough changed everything.
So I was making more, doing less, and that's when I knew that I was onto something.
Watch as he reveals the critical mistakes that every entrepreneur needs to make.
The leads that you do get, it's speed to lead. If you're not touching that customer within 5 minutes, you basically lost the lead.
5 minutes? The surprising strategy that lets them charge more than their competitors and still end up on top.
It's the biggest reason why we can bid 40% higher than our competition and still win jobs.
Whoa. And at last, the damaging myth that prevents most entrepreneurs from getting started. All right, Taylor, tell us a little bit about yourself, where we are, and what services you offer here.
My name is Taylor Shores. I'm the owner of High Point Gutter. I've owned the business the last 8 years. I started the business in 2016. We're in Woodinville, Washington, and we're basically about 30 minutes north of Seattle.
Gotcha. What about services? What are we talking about as far as what you offer?
So today we're going to talk about gutter installation. We're going to talk about gutter cleanings, all things gutters. We're in a niche market, and that's really beneficial when it rains as much as it does in Seattle.
On that note, let's talk a little bit about what inspired you specifically to get into this niche. Did you have a business background in 2016, et cetera?
I did not have a business background. I'm a college dropout. I went to Montana State. Schooling was not really for me, and when I came back from university, I started working, doing a blue-collar trade, and I got into gutters. After working for my boss for about 5 years, I had $35 in my checking account. My dad always told me to work for experience, not for money. And so I felt at that point I needed money, but I had the experience. So I started a side hustle, and the first thing I started doing was cleaning gutters until I had enough money to do gutter installation.
Gotcha. And this is 2016 side hustle.
This is 2016 side hustle. My daughter was born in January. I felt like I was not as good of a provider as I could have been, and that's when I got the idea of opening up a business.
Before we get into margins and numbers, let's talk about when you first started. Tell us about whether this as a side hustle was a success right away. What kind of money did you make starting out?
No, it's pretty easy to just make money on the weekends doing this. Average cost of job is about $300-400 per.
This is cleaning, right?
This is cleaning because I had to start out in cleaning. On Saturdays, I was doing about 3 or 4 jobs, and I took cash in the beginning. Don't recommend, but I was just getting started out. Gotta get started somewhere, and I did wear my safety equipment, and I'd make about $1,200 to $1,600 cash in one day.
Sounds like more than Monday through Friday.
It was more than Monday through Friday. My average take home working for my past employer was like $1,300, so I was making more, doing less, and that's when I knew that I was onto something.
Light bulb moment, right?
Yeah, so I think that there needs to be a little fruit on the tree for you to kind of explore. So I think for entrepreneurs, you go a little ways, and then you figure out if there's money on it. And if the sales cycle is too long because you don't have enough money at the time, maybe it's a good business, but maybe for later.
Awesome, good advice. Well, let's talk about numbers. I know you guys love hearing that. So where's your revenue as a company today? What do you expect for 2024? And what do margins look like? Yeah, so for 2024, we're gonna do $5 million. Wow.
That's in installation and cleaning. Margins on that is about 13 to 15% net profit.
Okay. Is that about industry average, 13 to 15, or are you kind of operating higher, lower?
Probably average. We're still performing and improving. We're growing a lot, so we're having to buy a lot of things this time.
How are you bringing in customers when you first started just cleaning on the weekend?
Right, so there was obviously the word of mouth. I would do one job, and then as soon as I got to that job, I would knock on the immediate 6 doors around me, whether they answered or not. If they did answer, it was a pretty simple sell because I'd say, hey, I just did Mrs. Smith's house. It's right there. Would you like me to do your house at the same time? So it was pretty simple that way.
What about platforms back in that day? What were some of the...
Platforms was Angie's List back in that time. I do not recommend that now because it's more of a pay per cost lead scenario. At the time, I was spending $300 a month and I was getting like 10 to 15 leads a month, which is really good.
Yeah, things have really changed on that platform, right?
They have, yeah. Absolutely.
So what would you do today?
Yeah, if I had to start over again, I would still do contact friends, family, try and get referrals out of there. That's easy. And then I immediately have a website. You can get a cheap website. I've seen you guys talk about how you can even help from the UpFlip channel on websites. I would get a website started, and then I would immediately start collecting Google reviews. As soon as you have 50 reviews, you become an actual business. But if you have less than 50 reviews, your way forward will be harder.
Let's go check out the sheet metal shop.
Okay, sound good.
What do you call this corner?
Sheet metal shop.
Sheet metal
Yeah.
shop. I don't know why I get stumped on that.
No,
What
okay.
happens in this corner here overall, basically?
So we make flashings. A lot of times we have to have certain flashings when they meet the roof and the gutter goes underneath the roof.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's gaps, so we have to make up for it with our own different flashings.
So this is a machine to cut this piece here.
Exactly, this is our shear.
Well, show me how to do
Yep.
what we're doing
Safety
here.
first, let's put our gloves on.
You don't want to get your fingers cut.
No, we're going to slide this in until you can kind of feel
That's
that
it?
stop. That's it. And then there's a pedal right
Do I
there.
press it and hold,
you
or just-
You just press it and hold. Yep, and then you just keep
Nice.
going all the way.
That's how you do it. All right, so this is a large space, by the way. Lots of moving parts, lots of components. Can you give us an idea on what your monthly overhead is and what's the biggest monthly expense?
Labor and all parts combined, it's about $200,000 per month.
Per month?
Yeah,
Whoa.
before we break even. So in the beginning, it wasn't that way, and you need to scale it up. So the expense is that $16,000 for rent, and then I do it percentages. So I've kind of lined up so that our pricing is percentage of guys and cost. So 17% is labor, 17% is materials. Then we have commission on our sales guys, which is 8%. On installation alone, we're about 54% gross profit. And then from that comes the salaries of the office, the inner workings, and insurance.
Wow. What were some of the biggest challenges in the first year of operating this business? Can you be specific, and how did you overcome them exactly?
Yeah, so I'd say my biggest challenge was pricing and making sure that they were profitable. I didn't know my percentages. I didn't have enough mentorship in my life. And so when I got my first mentor, I started asking him, how do you price jobs to still remain profitable as you're growing?
So what was the game changer? You hired someone, or
Right,
who came
so-
into the picture that really helped you scale?
Exactly. So there's a 20% business owner partner of ours, and his name's Daniel. When Daniel Doran came in as the CFO in the company, he was able to help us with projections. He was able to help us with budget, so that we knew we were profitable all along the way. We also have a system in our business called EOS, which is an entrepreneur operating system. It's from a book called Traction. So
Yeah,
once
we've heard
a
about.
week, we have a 90-minute meeting with all of our managers where we focus on the top pinch points of our company, and that was brought in by Daniel, which has allowed us to conquer a lot of the challenges that we're facing.
How much did it cost for you to get started in this business?
It was about $500. I was fortunate enough, my father-in-law allowed me to borrow his enclosed van. I had to take out the bench seats to get out of the van. So it was very, very humble beginnings. And
500 bucks for materials and then a free van?
So with $500, you can get a harness and a bucket, safety. So the harness and bucket's like 120 bucks. Ladder might be the Gorilla type ladder that you can fold open and close, multi-utility. You can fit it inside a smaller vehicle. That's roughly about $150, $200. So all in, you can basically get a stick, a bucket, some cleaning solutions, less than $500. You can be cleaning gutters tomorrow.
At which point did you start buying bigger machines?
So I started that after my first year in business. I was able to scrape up enough. I think that it's really difficult to start a business without some type of debt. I was able to work with my supplier to buy my gutter machine, finance that cost, and then I got a loan for the van. So all in, I had about $20,000 financed. The machine is about $10,000. The van was about $8,000. And with those two components, with like a low monthly payment, I think I was paying like $300 or $400 a month.
Not bad.
But my capability is I could make 10 grand a week
Oh, wow.
of gross if I had the jobs for it. So,
All right, Blitz time with Taylor. You ready?
yes.
What has been a guiding principle or philosophy that you try to follow with your business?
I think that you keep the customer first. Customer's not always right, but the customer always has to win. If somebody's upset with you personally and your character, you hold true to yourself, but the customer always has to win.
Okay, what's the strangest or funniest interaction you've had with a customer?
Oh gosh, kind of an interesting detail in Redmond. There was a gal and she was onset dementia, and so she was helping out her mom, and she kept forgetting who I was. So I had to keep introducing myself, and you know what? It went great. Just be polite to people, it'll go far away.
Okay. What's the biggest installation job you've ever completed, and how big was the property, and how much did you earn?
It was from a roofer investment capital firm. They bought a company, or they bought I think it was 36 buildings in Redmond,
Oh, wow.
which I don't know how many millions that was. The job total for us was $250,000.
Nice.
Yeah, so we completed it in roughly 6 weeks. I think we made all in net, we did really well on the job. I think we made about $80,000, and that took about 6 weeks.
Not bad. Okay, what's one piece of information that you think every homeowner should have when it comes to their gutters?
I think that people need to be aware that they're up there. A lot of times people call us when they've forgotten about them, and I think people just need to look up after this video and make sure that they're cleaned out, they're fastened on, and if not, call a good company.
What is the highest you've climbed to change, clean, or repair gutters?
I think I was up 7 stories in Bellevue on a commercial building. Yeah, very, very dangerous. I don't do anything more than about 4 or 5 stories. Not anymore, just because of the liability.
A couple more. What are the challenges of having this type of business in a particularly rainy climate? Is it good for business or bad?
It's great for business. I think the most calls we've ever had for new work was 400 calls in a single week.
No way.
I had to turn off estimates. I didn't scale fast enough.
That's crazy. All because of rain.
All because of rain.
The rain reminded them, hey, I need cleaning or I need repairs or something like that.
Pennies from heaven. We love it.
Last one. If you could change the gutters of any historical landmark, building, structure, etc., what would it be and why?
We already did it. The Seattle Aquarium.
Out of all the companies, you got the job. What's the story there in a nutshell?
Just professionalism. Yeah,
awesome.
My dad and I both drive. There was a story of small family-owned business wanting to grow, and we're going to do a great job. We're going to do what we say we're going to do. Very important.
Good job, Taylor.
Yeah, thank you.
Boom. If you're looking to instantly separate your business from the pack, then getting a unique URL through .online domains is the simple, effective solution you're looking for. Online is the second largest new domain extension in the world with over 3.4 million registrations globally. And whether your business installs gutters or is a party clown named UpFlippy, a .online domain lets you secure the name you actually want, not just the leftovers from other domain extensions like .com. Plus, the word online is part of keywords searched over 500 million times a month. That's a huge boost for SEO right out of the gate. And the best part, .online has partnered with Namecheap, the second largest domain registrar in the world, and made getting your domain incredibly easy and affordable at just 98 cents. With the power of .online and Namecheap behind you, you only need to think about making your business bigger, better, and bolder online. So hit the link in the description and visit namecheap.com/upflip to secure your dream domain today. Can you explain to us why we have more than just one makeshift roof in the floor and why that's important to your business? Let's dive into that a little bit more.
These roofs were actually given to me by a friend's roofing company for the purpose of safety. That one's to show you're actually physically walking on it and how steep it is.
Yep.
This roof, not fully functioning yet, but we're gonna have these gutters installed. It shows where safely guys can step and where not to step.
So this is all obviously for training, safety. Have you as a company owner had some major issues that you learned from?
Yes.
And said, you know what, we need to change something.
Right, so there's been minor incidences throughout the years, but the major incident came in 2021. We do a safety training on every Monday morning, and this particular day I had a guy who I thought was super safe. He had his bags on, just like you are now, and he's working 2 stories up, rope behind him, decides that he doesn't need the rope, walks down to the roof edge and falls off 2 stories and breaks both of his ankles. And it affected him the rest of his life. And I just thought, this is not worth it, and I won't continue to own this business if I don't do a better job myself in taking responsibility and making sure that those guys are being safe.
Wow. And then after that point, this is where it came in.
This is where it came in.
Different approach to training, safety, etc. Right?
Yep. So I wanted guys to have better training here because better training equates to safer practice outside. And the byproduct of that too is not only the safety aspect, it's the cost afterwards. So we're in the state of Washington. We have labor and industries here. You're taxed on how safe your company is, and you have a score.
Okay.
And my score doubled. So I went from paying $3.50 per hour for every worker to over $7
because of that incident.
Because of that incident. That claim was roughly $300,000.
Wow. All right, welcome to the office, guys. Let's talk about numbers and pertaining to the cost of installation versus cleaning. Can you just give us a breakdown? What's more profitable too, as far as profit margins, etc.?
Yeah, well, cleaning's more profitable. Just getting the amount of cleanings to make things go is a little tougher. So we're adding those on and slowly growing that business. Installation is what we do. Average install is about $4,200.
Gross margins on that is?
54%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's that look like for cleaning?
Cleaning's
Average
higher.
cleaning?
Yeah, it's about 70%.
And the average ticket on that here in the area?
That's about $600, $650. And that includes a roof blow off, gutter cleaning, and then we might do some moss treatment.
How does a company at this level of success manage the operational side of the business? Can you talk to us about maybe the organizational side? What's important to highlight?
Totally. So I highly recommend reading a book called The E-Myth. That book helped me to orchestrate an org chart. So an organizational chart helped me to outline all the positions of the company. And then from that, we continue to use the org chart where I can continue to grow the company as needed. I'll highlight the next 3 positions that we need to hire so I know my next 3 hires, and I just continually keep moving that forward.
What's so important about the org chart? I mean, for someone who's maybe new to the idea, and not everyone implements one as well.
It starts with day 1, what do you want the company to look like? The E-Myth book talked about work on your business, not in your business. You're gonna list all the different positions in your company as you want to grow, where you want it to grow to, and then you can put names. So if you have the org chart already laid out, you can delegate certain responsibilities because you can't do it all.
Where do you think most entrepreneurs fall short, planning or execution? What do you say to that?
I think it's a little hand in hand. I think you need a goal and you need a plan. And if you have a goal, something your why you're working for that thing, then no plan, you're not going to reach the goal. And if you have a plan and no big why or why that goal matters, you're not going to reach the goal. So I think you just have to work them tandem together.
Make sure you have both.
Have both. Before the business starts, it needs to be part of the business plan because you need to be driven. And there's going to be some really hard times. So if your why is big enough, you'll push through.
Absolutely. We've got an incredible episode coming up with a serial entrepreneur, best-selling author, Patrick Bet-David, who's going to be sharing some of the most lucrative pieces of entrepreneurial wisdom with all of you guys. So make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss anything. Where are we going next? You're going to take us to an actual project?
We're going to a project. We have a 14-building condominium complex up in Snohomish. They're actually a remodel. So we're taking off the gutters, we're putting on new gutters, and they're in desperate need. So we're going to go help them out.
Cool. Can you give us a little breakdown on a little bit about the project? And I'm interested how you got the lead too.
We got the lead through reputation and Google. They just reached out to us after seeing basically us show up in SEO or ad.
Nice.
And this project in particular is 14 buildings. There's roughly about over 8,500 feet of gutter and downspout here.
Wow.
We have 2 to 3 guys working on here every week.
So what about when it comes to cleaning jobs? What does the crew look like and timing on that?
Yeah, so typically I like to do cleaning crews and 2-man crews for safety.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, because if something were to happen, you'd want to have another person there.
How much time is needed for typical average roof?
Typical average house, I mean, it can range. If you're dealing with a Rambler over in Edmonds, maybe 15 minutes. And that might be a $150, $250 job. But typically what we want to do is either 3 to 4 cleaning appointments per day.
Gotcha.
And the average appointment is $650.
So you started this business as a side hustle cleaning gutters, but today you've helped over 10,000 customers.
Right.
The question is, how do we convert leads to customers?
If you have the marketing piece fixed and you are receiving the leads that you do get, it's speed to lead. So what I mean by that is if it's a Yelp customer, if it's Thumbtack, if it's Angie Leads, if you're not touching that customer within 5 minutes, you basically lost the lead.
5 minutes?
5 minutes. And even
that's eternity.
We track it. Yeah, it's basically within 60 seconds.
Yeah.
So if you're not the first call, and I'm sorry, homeowners, but contractors know, that lead is sold to maybe 3 to 5 other contractors. And if you're not touching them within 5 minutes, you've already spent the money. And each lead can cost anywhere from $40 to $100.
Yeah.
So you're burning money if you're not getting to them.
Let's go check out how you actually print gutters, or essentially print money.
Okay,
Let's see where it happens. I'll follow you.
All right.
Come with us.
This particular machine, you can see that it adjusts. So it creates a 5-inch K-style gutter, and there's also a larger variation, which is a 6-inch K-style gutter.
Okay.
One's kind of meant more for the residential space, like these buildings.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Talk about the amazing Google reviews that you have. Over 500 5-star Google reviews. Yeah. Tell us specifically on your approach to customer service and how that's given you an edge in this industry.
Yeah, well, the business is not really run by me now. There's actually a video of that gentleman who...
Joshua Brown?
Joshua Brown. Thank you, Joshua, if you're watching this. So he mentioned the 5-star service in the beginning part when they send out the initial request and the quote.
Yep.
We have that verbiage in each of our videos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we have it from request.
I didn't pay him to say this. This is the truth.
No,
fact.
this was true.
By
Thank you,
watching our
Joshua.
videos.
Yeah, so
That's
basically
cool.
by watching the
Very
videos,
encouraging.
we put the 5-star in the request, the quote. We tell them we're going to deliver the 5-star service when we book the job. The job is complete. Our guys come and say, hey, did we deliver on our 5-star service? We also have Google cards. So every time that my crews get a 5-star rating at the door, because they ask at the beginning of the job, if we do a great job, can we do it? They get $40 each guy.
Wow, that's
for
for you.
incentive.
Yeah.
But if you're paying $80 for the crew to do a great job and earn a review, they're excited about the incentive and they want to do a good job.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess one takeaway for me is like, watch but execute. And
Absolutely.
it sounds like you just took one little piece of.
I've implemented very
Execution.
many nuggets, but
Yeah.
thank you, Joshua, because that's probably given us, I think, about 100 reviews since we implemented it.
So
We've
cool.
gotten more reviews faster by just
because
doing
of that
that.
change.
Yeah.
That's cool. So we're doing more than we need, and then we measure
We're
it
gonna
out.
do more than we need, and we're gonna stop it after about 8 feet. Exactly. That little stand comes right up to it and helps support it. We take our templates, very important, and we're gonna make sure that this is gonna be straight. We mark the inside of the gutter. So it helps just create a nice clean line without any restriction on the blades. You're gonna help me put on the end cap. You're gonna take that
This way?
piece,
Okay.
gonna grab that and you're gonna give it a big grab right there. Perfect, good job. Now let's
That's
get
it.
one on the bottom. And then in the back, you can grab one there on the back. Perfect. And
Just
all that
3
does,
taps, that's it?
That's it.
So now we got to measure out the actual distance.
We got to measure out the actual distance, which is 111 3/4. So I think for learning this trade, the technical parts are not required if you want to start the business and hire people. But I think it would be advantageous if people were to just learn the trade a little bit, because you can save your cost, you can do the installs yourself, and then you don't have to pay employees. So in the beginning, you know, working for a gutter company part-time, learn a little bit.
As you're working on this, the question I had is an important one, and that is marketing. What is your monthly marketing spend?
Yeah.
Platforms that's been most effective?
Yeah.
Break it down to us if you could.
So we're spending about $30,000 a month right now.
that's on the high season or low?
That's kind of on the low season.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah, so we usually spend about 8% of total revenue on marketing.
Got it.
Pretty aggressive. We'll go up to 10% even sometimes. And where the bulk of that money goes, it's about $12,000 in ads. We'll pay people to do our SEO for us. So they
that's
charge
part of
about
it.
$5,000. So you're about 17 right there.
Yep.
We do about $5,000 on Yelp. We advertise gutter cleaning, gutter installation, things like that. Yelp has actually worked out pretty good. We've noticed that the leads in the Pacific Northwest, they're better on Google. And so the best thing is for SEO. However, the paid ads do fine. You've got Thumbtack, that's roughly about $500. Angie Leads is another couple $1,000.
So you do Angie's even.
We do, and then we do some more broader, like with the amateur hockey team in Everett. We're with the Everett Silvertips. We have a commercial that plays there, and we have signage.
Nice.
Yeah,
What
so we
about
have a
Facebook?
contract.
You mentioned that.
Facebook's
Meta
okay.
ads.
Yeah, the click-through rate on Facebook, because we're able to track all that, has been a little bit tougher, but it is a good, inexpensive way if you have a few $100s.
Definitely less than Google for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just got to look at your return on investment, I guess.
Yes.
Any tricks you want to share as far as when it comes to marketing on these platforms? Any one particular?
I would say watch more of your videos on UpFlip, because there's some good entrepreneurs on there that know a lot more than I do.
Than you do? Okay, that's fair. What sort of mistakes have you made since starting this business? And here's kind of an interesting question. What mistakes do you think every entrepreneur needs to make to actually learn something from it?
Yeah, every entrepreneur needs to learn their margins. You need to learn how much your cost of goods sold is. That's your material cost, your labor cost, and in my case, I put estimating with it. So those 3 things is my cost of goods sold. I just did not have that correct in the beginning.
And that results in underpricing yourself, essentially?
Underpricing myself, not being profitable enough. I encourage everybody in this space to have 50% gross margins. If you balk at that, if you don't think it's possible, we did it.
All right, here's the finished product. Let's go get it installed.
Okay, sounds good.
I kind of expected this to weigh 100 pounds. I don't know why.
Nope, they're pretty light.
Let me ask you a question about the fact that you were raised with entrepreneurs, so you had some firsthand lessons, experiences, right, that you learned from.
Yeah.
But for those that don't have that opportunity, how can they learn the ins and outs of ownership, business, etc.?
I think that YouTube is a great resource. I think the UpFlip Academy is going to be critical.
You've checked it out?
I've checked it out, and I think that the videos kind of show from a first-hand basis deeper than the channel goes, because you can teach specifics on technical points in the business. And if people really want to pursue this further, those videos are going to show them what it takes to be that entrepreneur in that space. But I think that if somebody really wants it bad enough, that they can find the resources, and it's not that costly.
All right, let's do this. We'll let the pros finish what they already started. On this long journey of yours, do you have any regrets that you can share with us, or are they just learning opportunities? And how has your definition of success changed with, the financial security that you have today that you didn't before?
I think that regrets is a tough word because what we do in life gets us to where we are. And I think everything's for a purpose. I do have those moments where I did work the 100-hour weeks where I didn't get to spend as much time with my daughters and my family. I've done that now, so I get to enjoy them, but there's still those moments where I don't remember them, there's fuzzy, and I wish I had more clarity on it. And I think that my definition for success, how it's changed over the years, is initially I thought, having wealth was more important than it is now. I think money is nice, but the relationships I have with my wife and with my kids, if those went away in exchange for the wealth, it's really true. Money doesn't make you happy. It can make things easier, but really you need to get focused on the core things. Money just enhances what's already there.
Right. So the average lifespan of a gutter is what, 20, 25 years?
Yeah.
There you go. Delivery in progress. Which begs the question, how do you maintain a relationship with these customers to still earn while not really installing? Does that make sense?
Correct, yeah. So if the customer's not quite ready, so if we show up, it's just a repair, gutters are 5 or 10 years old, what we'll do is we'll form a relationship through repair and cleaning, and our cleaning program continues to expand.
What about how much do customers that you install new gutters for, how much of those convert to actually cleaning customers?
Yeah, so our warranties are tied up with our installations. So when we install gutters, I highly recommend you keep the name. Gutters last 20 to 25 years on average, so we want to keep going back to those customers.
Right.
We tie in the warranty to the cleanings.
What does that sound like?
Yeah, so seasonal maintenance program, basically 35% of all clients that we go to for installation, we're able to retain and maintain on the seasonal maintenance side of things. That includes, if they have the covers, we'll do roof blow-offs, we'll do moss treatments. That's a yearly recommended service. You at least get your roof blown off, checked out by our company, and have the moss treatment done in this area, because the Pacific Northwest is really needs it.
Any stipulations as far as for you to do that the customer needs to be responsible for?
Yeah, so if the customer's not up on their yearly maintenances on things, unless they have the covers, then the warranty is voided.
Really?
Yes, and the reason being is because in the beginning I didn't have it that way. I'd install gutters, I would get warranty calls 5 years later, they hadn't cleaned them in 5 years. And so I was losing a lot of money on the back end, so I made that change about 3 or 4 years ago.
You were working full-time for another gutter company while you started your own gutter cleaning service, eventually gutter install on the side.
Yeah.
The question that I have is, how did you handle communication with the boss?
Yeah, so my boss, his name's Chuck, and I sat down with Chuck and I said, hey Chuck, I'm looking to start my own business. I'm really interested in that. I had talked to him about trying to excel and grow his company first. That kind of seemed like a dead end. He was kind of comfortable where he was at. So I just told him, hey, I'm going to start this cleaning company. I'm going to do this on the weekends. It won't bother Monday through Friday. And I think being honest with your employer, I'm a big believer in don't burn the ships. If you're in my position where you have a kid on the way, you have to think about providing for your family. And it's a little bit safer if you can say, hey, this is what I'm doing on the side. How do we feel about that? And being upfront.
Any other surprises in that conversation?
Well, I didn't tell him the name of the business. And it wasn't a cleaning company, it was a gutter company. And so when he found out, he was upset.
About what specifically?
So I framed the conversation that was more of a cleaning company.
Oh, I see.
Yes, and the reason for that was just, I was naive. In the beginning, I was nervous and I was worried about getting fired. And so I didn't have this fully functioning business yet. I was kind of in this awkward in-between stage. Going forward, learn from my mistake, be honest, be transparent, have an open conversation.
Do you want to start or scale your own business? That first step is easier than you can imagine with UpFlip Academy's detailed step-by-step blueprints. Imagine learning from active business owners like Joshua Brown, whose pressure washing business brings in nearly $2 million a year. or former Google employee Jill Gales, whose insider knowledge of Google Ads and SEO can leave you with more customers than you can handle. Whether you're just getting started or ready to expand, the UpFlip Academy has everything you need to succeed. So click the link in the description below for free access today. Why has mentorship been so important to you in your growth, and who are some of the mentors that you've been looking forward to for guidance?
Absolutely. So mentorship is huge. I think if you don't have the skills or the people set or the friend groups to know entrepreneurs online, YouTube is great. You can find mentors online. Start there. They're free, very successful, and a lot of them are just giving back and want to help you. For me personally, I know a guy named Leon Johnson. He owns a company that does $50 million a year. They're the biggest concrete company doing all the foundations in Seattle and the state. They're non-union.
Wow.
So I was blessed enough. He's a gentleman who attended my church. He was where I wanted to go. He had fruit on the tree. And I think when you're vetting your mentors, their lifestyle and who they are has to align with where you want to go.
So what's the best way to approach in connecting with entrepreneurs, would you say?
If I were you trying to get past some of the gatekeepers, you're going to start with mentors that are maybe not lesser than, but their companies are a little smaller. And then once you've developed and you sense the need to grow, my first mentor, he had 6 guys working for him and he was an electrician. But then I could quickly outgrow that, so I need to find something bigger. You're just gonna rub shoulders with people, be intentional. Writing personal letters is dead. So if you can write a letter to a company, address it to the CEO, owner, or president and say, hey, I'm getting started out. I'd really love to pick your brain on some stuff. I'll buy you lunch.
You said it's dead?
It's dead in terms of people don't do the personal reach out anymore.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay.
That's what I mean. And they don't make the effort. Everything's on Instagram, LinkedIn. Those are also good ways.
Right.
But a lot of it is just face to face. Hey, I would really love to pick your brain on something. I have basically nothing to offer, but would you be willing to help, pour in some wisdom into me? That can go really far.
That's awesome. What would you say were some of the hardest sacrifices you've had to make as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and were they worth the financial upside?
Yeah, I think they were, but it didn't minimize the sacrifice. When you start a business, I think the expectation is you should expect it to be 10 times harder than it's actually going to be. For me, I was working 80 to 100 hours a week.
Wow.
Yeah, there'd be days where I'd wake up at 6 a.m. I would get back home at 9 p.m. I wouldn't see my kids for 3 to 4 days, and my wife would have to physically bring the kids to the office so that I could spend time with them. And I love my family. I've got 3 girls and 1 on the way in about 6 weeks.
Congrats, man.
And without those early 4 to 5 years, sleep deprivation and all, I missed a lot of memories. I think in the long run, it's going to pay out, but there is sacrifices that you have to count. I think the freedom that I have now and the way that I'm able to provide for my family was worth it, but there is sacrifice involved.
As an entrepreneur, you're always wading through many, many different things.
Right.
And how do you get comfortable being uncomfortable? I think there's some success in there.
Yeah, it's very important. You want to constantly expand your comfort zone. And so for me, when I was getting started, I didn't like knocking doors. It was really hard, and it still is hard, but you get one job, you knock the 6 doors, it's going to improve your character.
What doesn't still went ahead and did it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and the main reason is because my mentor told me to do it. So if I could do it and follow instructions, I knew I'd be successful just because the guys that I were listening to are successful.
Do you think anybody can start and operate and build a business successfully in this niche?
Yes.
And if so, what do you think holds them back from doing that?
I think part of it is the technical skills, the cleaning portion of the business. Everybody can do it. It's a lot of physical work, so that could labor or be limiting on some people. I think what limits people from doing it, honestly, it's probably their lack of doubts or unanswered questions, but a lot of that information, it's on the UpFlip channels. The excuses are kind of taken away. It comes back to priorities. What is your why? If your why is big enough, you're going to get started. Yeah, what you lack in brains, you can make up for in grit. So, for example, my mentor who does the concrete work, he prides himself on relational knowledge, and he's a hard worker. But in the beginning, I couldn't leverage as much with my work because I didn't have the experience. So you just have to put in the time. That's why I was working 80 to 100 hours a week.
Makes sense.
Nowadays, I'm only working 50 to 60 hours a week. And most entrepreneurs just kind of find that balance later on. In the beginning, there's not going to be much balance.
What are some of your book recommendations besides the ones you've already been kind enough to mention? And give us one highlight from maybe a new book.
So the one book that I like that has helped me a lot is The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell.
Familiar with it,
yeah. And the laws of those leaderships, that's kind of where, as a leader, he talks about you can't lead people that are bigger leaders than you. You have a lid. So if you want to grow as a leader, if you want to grow as a business owner, you need to put in the time and the investment to read and make sure that you're keeping up with things.
If you want to kickstart a gutter installation and cleaning business of your own, then make sure to grab the ultimate checklist to make sure you have everything you need to get this business off the ground. Just click the link in the description below. So you mentioned charging more than his competitors. What do you say to a potential customer who's not really thrilled with the quoted price?
Sure.
Do you offer discounts to close the sale? Talk a little bit about that and how you operate.
We're typically about 30% more than our next competitor, and you have to make up the value. If the value is there for a customer, they're not really thinking too much about the price. If it's prompt communication, if the quality is there, the customer service is there, you can get that 30% pretty easily. We don't offer discounts. The reason for that is because we don't shortchange ourselves. We don't want the neighbor to get the discount and then they refer and then that neighbor gets a deeper discount.
Yeah.
We're not really playing that. The value that we offer is set and we believe that we can fulfill on that. We do offer financing, so trying to be flexible.
Nice. Can you boil down to more specific on how, as entrepreneurs, we get to that point? Because when you start a business, very common mistake is you underprice yourself.
Yeah.
And you're not really making money, but you've got a lot of work.
Yes, absolutely. I think some people, including myself in the beginning, we make a pricing error. It's usually due to my own insecurity. I just wanted the phone to ring. When I started the business, come the first slow season in February, I didn't get a call for 2 weeks. And my back was against the wall. My wife's looking at me, staying at home. I was knocking on doors rather than at home because I wanted to prove to her that I could make it work.
So you mentioned insecurity as being one of the reasons to undercut yourself, underprice yourself. Right. How do we overcome that? How did you overcome that personally?
I think every person is different. For me, how I got rid of that insecurity is I just had to do it for longer. It was experience. As soon as I had 5 reviews, 10 reviews, then 50 reviews, I realized my business was sustainable. I could do a good job. I wanted to duplicate myself and grow my business. And I couldn't pay employees based on how I was paying myself.
Right.
So that's where the price naturally had to climb up. And then we made a jump in 2020. And that's when the material costs were extensive. There wasn't enough workers. And that event actually really helped me.
Just like downspouts, what are the seemingly small details of running a business that, if not addressed, may have huge consequences?
Yeah, so every entrepreneur when they first start is wearing about 7 to 8 hats. You have to do everything in the beginning. Before you even get started, I recommend forming some sort of business plan. Schedule out your weeks on Google Calendar, and then on your Google Calendar, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever days they are, schedule the different hats on different days or different times of the day. So for example, I needed to go and estimate projects, but I needed to install. I would pick certain days to do estimates on and I would hold to it. And at the beginning part of the week, I call it my power hour. You plan that 1 hour time. You gotta strategize. Jeff Bezos kind of has this quote where he says, entrepreneurship's not a line from A to B, it's wandering. So you need to allow yourself time to think. A lot of business owners get burnt out, stressed out, tired. And the reason being is because we're not allowing critical thinking time to plan out our week so that we can get everything done.
Well said. How do you handle the seasonality of the gutter business? And what strategies specifically did you implement to make sure that revenue is somewhat steady throughout the year?
So typically in gutter businesses, it gets really cold here in the Pacific Northwest, so we can't necessarily clean gutters in the months of February and March. We may have some snow, so it's just more difficult weather. And people think we're the busiest in the winter. That's not actually true.
The slowest?
Slowest. Basically, everybody spends their money during Christmas time, which leaves it kind of needing to add something to keep the pipeline full. Yeah.
So strategies-wise, marketing-wise, what's different during slow months as opposed to busy months? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, we'll spend more on Google Ads predominantly. We're also in Facebook ads, and then we'll track which campaigns do better. And that may not be something that you're able to do in the beginning. So I recommend kind of hiring a third-party person who can help push a couple of those ads. They will help. As long as you're tracking the profitability of them, you just put in more ads when you're slower, and that should help kind of keep your workflow pretty steady.
So revenue isn't really average out over 12 months. It's you essentially making everything in 6 months.
Or 4.
Most of it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we'll make about 50% of our total annual revenue in 4 months of the year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it's tough to scale that. So we do 4 10s with our shifts, so 4 days a week, 10-hour days, and that works really well for the crew members. Basically, that schedules from about February to June, and then we may go to 5 days a week, 10-hour days, and the guys look forward to that period because they make a lot more money. They know that those slower periods, maybe they take more vacations, and we're able to kind of average out our labor throughout.
Yeah, good tip. So as a business owner, you will feel a lot of times like you're spinning multiple plates. Everything seems important. The question is, how do you prioritize time and tasks and just be effective on that?
Absolutely. So there's a book called The One Thing. And I think that a lot of business owners or potential business owners, you have a laser, and if it's spread too far out, it's ineffective. And so what you need to do is you need to lower, or rather focus the laser on a particular point to where it's actually useful. And I think that a lot of people just don't do that. So how I look at it in priority is, what's the one thing that only I can do that nobody else can do? And then I just try and focus in on that one thing, whether it's, hey, I need to hire a potential candidate. Hey, I need to look at hiring a different person in marketing or hire that person for marketing. Only I'm able to do those things. And then I just delegate the rest of the other tasks.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So your website features some really cool past projects that you've done. One of them is the Seattle Aquarium.
Yeah.
How big is the commercial side of your business? How do we attract more commercial side? Maybe talk revenue, margins, numbers. Are they different as opposed to residential?
Yeah, so I'd say the commercial side right now is about 15 to 20%, depending on the year. Obviously, as interest rates go up, there's people in these types of associations that don't want to spend as much money. So far this year, for a complex like this, we have to charge about 15 to 20% less, but we don't really drop down our prices too much. Obviously, if houses were further apart rather than the buildings, we can get more buildings done, and that kind of leads to the cost savings of the job.
Okay, so 15 to 20 on commercial side. Any difference as far as the commercial side, the margins, the cost, was it relatively the same?
It's relatively the same.
Bigger job,
for example, prevailing wage is great work. Prevailing wage is basically where you're doing government projects where the city funds that type of project, and so the Seattle Aquarium was a prevailing wage job. That's a whole lesson in and of itself. But if you can get into doing work for the government, they always have money. That's a great place where you can do work. So we did work at the nearby bases here at the Everett Naval Base as well.
As someone who watched your dad operate a successful business, right? And seeing income go from here to less than half of that.
Right.
So what advice do you have for our viewers as an experienced entrepreneur? Just with regards to that in general.
Being a kid growing up, you don't really see as many lessons. I've been able to go back and talk to my parents about, hey, how did that situation affect you? How were you able to manage that? Our family wasn't really stressed that moment. They didn't really show it. So what I learned is when his business went down by about half, the fear of failure wasn't really on his mind. He was still an attentive father. He was still a loving dad. He was a good husband. And so I think that learning to keep things in perspective can really help and go really far when you hit those early interactions.
That's awesome. Good advice. Yeah, because fear of failure is one of the reasons it stops a lot of people out there from pursuing their dreams, their business.
I believe it.
You know,
I had it too.
They have a 9 to 6, but they have this itch, they have this side hustle that's doing well, but there's still that fear of like, should I jump the fence or not?
That's why you're watching this video right now, because you might be on the fence. And what I would speak to those people who either have newly started or they're fresh to start, you're not alone. And that's why these videos are being produced, so that we can talk to those business owners, those entrepreneurs, and say, hey, it's a common fear. I think what you need to keep into perspective is if this business fails, what do you lose? You can come back. There's a lot of business owners who don't make it on their first venture, and there's a strong reason why. It's because through the process, facing those fears will be either minimized or go away.
Wow, well said. If you enjoyed this episode, then you got to check out episode 176 with Joshua Brown, who turned his side hustle into a $2 million a year pressure washing business. Thank you guys for watching. Can't wait to see you next time.